We all know farming has changed. With new and ever-advancing technologies, American farming and ranching doesn't look like it used to. Across the country, in operations big and small, we're making choices that help keep agriculture sustainable for your grandchildren and ours. Our values are the same. We grow crops and raise livestock and poultry, so you can raise families that are happy and healthy. And thanks to innovations in agriculture, we're feeding more people with fewer resources. With innovation come questions, and we're here with answers. So let's talk. From basic terminology so you can speak the same language and ask the right questions, to complex topics like environmental impact and GMOs. Food dialogues exist to provide answers to your questions about food, straight from the people who produce it. So get to know who we are, how we work, and why we love what we do.
Thank you for joining us for our Agri-Pulse Washington Week interview. I'm Spencer Chase, joined as always by Agri-Pulse Senior Editor Phil Brasher, discussing the week that was, agriculturally speaking, in Washington, D.C. And inside or outside of foreign policy circles, the biggest story in Washington this week was President Trump's budget being unveiled, much to the chagrin of a number of people on Capitol Hill. Didn't really like what they saw there, but this is really the first time we've had a chance to see administration priorities on some of the mandatory funding programs that we see across the administration, including in the Department of Agriculture. Now, to avoid getting bogged down in details, Phil and I aren't really going to get in a number-by-number situation here in this video. We've done that earlier in the week on agripulse.com, and I'd encourage you to give some of those articles a look. But Phil, really, people across party lines, across government lines, both on Capitol Hill and the administration, were saying this week that Congress writes the budget. So we see the administration roll out this budget. What does this mean, the news that we saw this week?
Well, a couple things. One, it lets the budget process for fiscal 2018, which starts October 1st, not that far away, it really lets it get rolling in Congress. We're really behind schedule now. Normally, the budget would be coming out in early February, and we would have a lot of hearings in March and April, and Congress would have already drafted a number of the spending bills, including the one for USDA and FDA by now, and start moving them to the floor. None of that has started. So we're way behind. So let's get started. The other thing I think it says, what you can draw from this, is that the influence of a number of conservative members from think tank, particularly the Heritage Foundation, that came into the White House early on. A lot of these ideas came from that wing of the party. A lot of cuts that were trying to show a balanced budget. They had to come up with some numbers, and so they threw a lot of things in here. Virtually none of it has much chance of getting into law, certainly with regard to the Agriculture Department.
Mm-hmm. And the leader of the Agriculture Department, Ag Secretary Sonny Perdue, went to Capitol Hill on two different occasions this week to defend the budget or speak about the budget before two different House Appropriations subcommittees. And Phil, you were there in the room when he was speaking before one of these subcommittees, and he really didn't make much of an effort to defend a number of the provisions in this budget.
No, he didn't. He kept throwing different committee members were throwing different things at him. The rural development cuts, gutted a couple of the rural business service, water and wastewater loans and grants, all of that cut. So he got questions about that. He got questions about deep cuts to food stamps, to crop insurance, even programs like the market access program that promote exports overseas, and he backpedaled pretty quickly. He was asked about eliminating the Food for Peace program, which distributes U.S. grown commodity and processed commodities overseas in needy countries. The chairman of the subcommittee, Robert Adderholt, pointed out that this seems to run entirely counter to the Buy America principle that the president is operating on, and the Secretary Perdue responded, well, that's irrefutable. That's more or less how that hearing went. You know, Sonny Perdue is a former governor. He's used to dealing with budget. He's used to dealing with people from both sides of the aisle, and it shows when he's at a hearing like this. Very good on his feet. Very good and usually pretty quick with the answer. And you know, he was dancing away from this pretty fast, and he could because he wasn't here for the development of this budget.
Right. I mean, that was specifically mentioned by Michael Young, the current acting deputy at USDA, that Secretary Perdue was not installed in time to give input on this budget, and so his fingerprints are literally nowhere near this thing, and so he's being asked to defend a policy that he did not help create.
Yeah, and therefore, I wouldn't take much from this in terms of where the administration is on things like crop insurance and a number of other issues, because again, as you point out, the Secretary was not there. There was no nominee at USDA to push back against these ideas when they were being developed in the White House.
But he was supportive of one change that was brought forward in the budget before the House Appropriations Subcommittee.
Yeah, I was struggling to, the one thing where he seemed to sort of try to make the case for it, and that was moving catfish inspection back from USDA to FDA. And he wasn't really arguing for it. He was just sort of explaining where they were. He didn't even attempt that on a number of the other issues. Certainly didn't on crop insurance or food for peace or food stamps.
Yeah, that's certainly one of the hot button issues within ag policy circles on Capitol Hill is who should be in charge of inspecting catfish.
Well, it's a hot button in a certain part of the country.
Yeah. Fair enough. But Phil, you spoke about this a little bit earlier too. This is really a chance for conservative Washington, D.C. to kind of flex its muscles and get some policy positions out there. In terms of how this might impact ag policy throughout the 115th Congress, what do you think we could see as potential impacts here?
Well, the one thing with the crop insurance, what they did here, they proposed a $40,000 cap on premium subsidies per farmer. They proposed a new means test, actually for both crop insurance and commodity programs, of $500,000, a limit of income limit of $500,000 a year. They proposed to do away with the harvest price option on revenue policies. These are all ideas that come from bills that have been introduced on a regular basis in the House and the Senate. I think what you'll see, either that bill, these ideas will surface as an amendment to the Farm Bill when it comes up in the House, maybe later this year, possibly next year. And something similar came very close to passing in the last Farm Bill. It's going to be, could be very close again. I don't think there's much chance of any of that becoming law because it's so strongly opposed within the Senate and House Agriculture Committees. But it does give some ammunition to those critics of crop insurance in this case.
So it was said repeatedly this week, Congress writes the budget, but we do have an idea of where the administration stands on a number of ag policy issues, and that'll be critical information to keep in mind as we move into deliberations about a farm bill, about agriculture funding, appropriations, things of that nature. So a lot of implications from this week will carry forward, but the actual policies that were proposed have very, very little chance of becoming enacted.
Yeah, well, it tells us where people in the Office of Management and Budget are coming from in the White House. Not particularly new, but it's something for folks to keep in mind.
Right, and before we let you go, we do want to mention the Senate this week did confirm Iowa Governor Terry Branstad as the ambassador to China. A lot of agriculture organizations, particularly the livestock and beef sectors, very excited, renewable fuels as well, to have Governor Branstad becoming Ambassador Branstad. Certainly some work to do on that front, they would say, because of the proposals or the plans to allow the importation of U.S. beef into China and what protocols will be involved there, what will the pricing structure look like. So he will be called upon very frequently by his current countrymates in the agriculture sphere, and so Governor Branstad resigned his post this week. Kim Reynolds is now the governor of Iowa. So some more appointments and confirmations coming from the Senate as they progress in these first couple months of the Trump administration. Both House and Senate will be on recess next week for the Memorial Day holiday, and so we will be taking a break from these videos as well. I do want to just give you a heads up that we'll have a Meet the Farmhands video that I think you'll all really enjoy, so I'd encourage you to check back next week for that. But I think that's going to do it for this week. For Phil Brasher, I'm Spencer Chase. Have a good one.